All righty. Good morning. So I thought since it's the prediction show 2024, I'd start off with the video from 2022 predicting 2023. So let's see how accurate it was. Here we go. 1 second. And good morning.
2022 seems like way more than a year ago.
Yeah.
Complete this statement. In 2023, I protect the retail auto industry will.
Kamil Roy, I actually work at Google. In 2023, I predict the retail auto industry will need to refocus on how they are driving efficiencies. And for the last couple of years, if anything, they've given us the best, most profitable years for a dealership. But what's going to happen is, as demand slows down and supply starts improving, it's just going to keep improving. That's what's setting in. And competition is going to get up. So you need to revisit as dealerships how are you incentivizing not just your consumers, but your sales folks as well. And that will be a lot more focus on the efficiency that you're driving operate. Maybe even look at revisit how you are stocking up your inventories going forward. So I think for me the prediction is the retail industry will refocus on how they're driving efficiency at the dealerships. So that's big.
Thanks, Jeff.
So it was refocus how you deal with customers if you didn't get the language there.
It's great for being here. I published the bench report and have a conference I put on annually, Automate, which focuses on investment in M&A activity in the automotive space, both from a tech perspective and dealership perspective. See, in 2023, I predict the retail auto industry will be not much different than what it is today. And let me just put a caveat there. Every presentation I've given list, you off the slide that is of the shattered crystal ball.
Thank you. This is Jocelyn. I'm Jocelyn Beaudet. Stella Automotive is a specialist in answering telephones. We use AI technology to help dealers service their consumer customers. And Stella is a fully automated AI that can have long dialogues, booking appointments. And what I predict is that the service lane is going to be completely overwhelmed. We are seeing early signs of it. I haven't heard it spoken about at too many conferences, but it's certainly something that we've been running into as Stella applies for and gets the job of appointment booking. What we noticed is there are dealers with appointments booking 6, 7, 8 weeks out. It's alarming that the service lane is already overwhelmed in some cities, some groups and areas. I think that what we're going to see by the end of 2023 is an emergence of white glove service, a move to AI for improved workflow processes, which I'd love to elaborate on. And then I think this kind of diagnostic to a diagnostic and or a recall to the customer involving smooth pickup, smooth diagnostic, smooth estimate of time, smooth pricing, and a good solution for that time period where the car's in service is going to be a big move this year.
So those are the predictions last year for this year. So as we get into the predictions for this year, we did a couple surveys. So I did one on LinkedIn and I did one to our group of people on our list. So this is what they had to say. And now LinkedIn, as you may know, has a little bit different amount of questions you can ask. So LinkedIn, I got digital retail will take off 46%. Digital retail from our survey of our list was only at 2%, 9.5%. Amazon 8%. It was 9.5 on our list. Leasing will take off was 15%, which was pretty much the same. And other, please comment below. I also had a couple other that was 31%. And I've got some comments there I'll share. EV sales was one that's been hot lately. 28.6% said that they're going to continue to decline. And then the last one was not sure, time will tell. So I'll be putting up a post summarizing both once I have all the answers in. It's a little early for this, but I think that that's pretty much the main topics that people seem to be talking about right now anyway. So let's get into the trailer reel.
Before Ian touches on the other, please comment below. I'd like to share our disclaimer. The views and opinions of those on the show are those of them and not necessarily ours, because you should have read the comments of Ian.
Oh, no worries. Those were not my comments. Those were from people online. So here we go.
Ready, set, game. Coming to you live, it's the Auto Hub Show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now. If you click on the link, you can sign up for a webinar. It's live with me and you'll learn the 7 strategies that you need at your dealership in order to see that success.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Brobson, the CEO over at Trusted Sale. And if you don't know Larry Feldman at Career Changers, boy, are you missing out. Now, what are you missing, you might ask? Well, for starters, you're missing the world's best trainer. But seriously, what makes Larry a great trainer is how engaged he keeps his audience. I was at a store recently while Larry was conducting training. And let me tell you, nobody wanted to leave that room. I mean, even when they needed a bio break, they wanted to stick around and hear what Larry had to say. The great late Jim Valvano, who said, to me, there are 3 things everyone should try to do every day. Number 1 is laugh. Number 2 is think. Spend some time in thought every day. And number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you laugh, think, and cry, that's a heck of a day. Well, I can tell you, Larry's going to make you laugh. He's going to make you think. And yeah, every once in a while, he's going to make you shed a tear or two. But one thing I can say, it's a heck of a day when Larry comes to visit. But wait, there's more. There is? Yeah. Not only is Larry a great trainer, but he's also one hell of a recruiter. So if you need people in your dealership, I mean anyone, you need technicians, salespeople, managers, BDC agents, whatever you need, Larry can get you staffed right with the right people and do it fast.
Poised to improve. Every month we'll want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great state. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to their front line. The average days in recon, and then the time to line are the most important thing to get to. I'm Mike Burrell, I'm Service Director at JM Lexi's.
Good morning and welcome. We will be launching a new show for 2024 season, and we are going to be getting sponsors for that show. It will be an interview show. It will be recorded. So if anyone's interested in being on that show as a guest or sponsoring, reach out to us. We also will be redoing our trailer reel and our sponsors for the 2024 season. includes CDK Global, just so you know. So if you're going to NADA this year, more than likely we'll be at the CDK booth podcasting from there at NADA. A couple of books. It was kind of hard to find books on predictions without going into tarot cards or tea leaves or that kind of thing. But I picked a few. New Dark Age, Technology and the End of the Future by James Brindle. Connectography, Mapping the Future of Global Civilization, and Megatech, Technology in 2050. So those are a few that I pulled. Check them out. Go ahead, Jeff, with our disclaimer. Just in case you missed our surveys earlier on, these aren't our opinions. They're the surveys that we sent out into the internet. So that's who came up with those ideas. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, of course. The views and opinions shared today and every day are those of our guests and not necessarily of us. We do this disclaimer to get us out of trouble because we've gotten into it a couple of times. And it's much easier to blame somebody else, Larry, than anybody else. So no, seriously, it is a simple disclaimer. Check out our website to get the full gist.
And it's the prediction show. So it's what to expect in 2025. Obviously, it's hard to make predictions, as just as much as hard as it is to make New Year's resolutions and keep them, but it's definitely interesting. This is some initial art for our mystery guest shows, which will be coming up next year. If you are interested in those will be recorded and broadcast throughout the year. Reach out to Jeff.
Ian, there are rumors that we're having Ronald Trump on, and we're having Nikki Haley, and we're having Flo Bider.
Rock and roll. All right, here we go. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, good morning, afternoon, anybody, wherever it is you're tuning in. Hello, Wendy. Nice to see you. Doug, hope you feel better. Thanks, April, Larry, and Peter for joining us. A little different format of the show today. We send out call flows, et cetera, and they're fine. But it's just an open-ended question. Ian started with our predictions for 2024. And we found that many of the predictions for 2023 were pretty far off. And obviously you don't know. And so Ian sent the questionnaire. We got one response that said from this person, that Greg Iverson, he answered all of the questions. He says, I think EV sales will decline in 24 and will continue for years to come. Internal combustion hydrogen is the next wave. That's very cool. Digital retailing will continue to grow, which, I think is a no-brainer. Amazon Hyundai partnership will get off the ground, but it'll be a blip on the screen long-term, which I kind of agree with. It'll be a small thing. We all think, we all remember back, we've had that discussion that we were all going to do everything online by 2017. Actually, I thought read somewhere it's 2013. Video will be more prevalent in the sales service process, which I certainly agree with, and that's also a no-brainer. And AI will be the biggest thing. And this tech integrated existing platforms will take off and provide much needed efficiencies. I do say one thing about AI is GPT is going to be a great way to issue layoff notices and termination notices to people because it'll cover most of the bases. And I'm actually semi-serious. But I'm going to throw it out to the order of logging in today, and Peter's always the first to log in. We love it. We have some great visits with him at the beginning. Peter, if you're going to make one prediction, we just want one because we can make 30 of them. What would that one prediction for 2024 be? Forget 2025.
Well, I can give you one that is an absolute guarantee. That a dealership will give me an opportunity to work with them. That is one I will guarantee. But in all fairness, there's so many that we can address, and the one I think will become prevalent in the future, and it is a shout out to a company that is represented on here is A to Z. I think we are going to go closer to the one-person model of operation in the dealership. We are going to consolidate our staff to lower our labor costs, and we're going to become more profitable by using the one-person end-to-end sales model in the variable. A to Z has it down pat, and I think that we're going to return to that relational sale rather than the transactional one and done, and that's the first and foremost way of doing it.
Well, I have to comment on that because I had the opportunity last week to talk to a number of Ford dealers as VidCalls goes through the Ford Direct process, and talk to a dealer in South Dakota. They sell cars in 14 states. And the thing that was interesting talking to that dealer was, you know, he's looking for ways to minimize sales staff, to have less salespeople. So I thought that was really interesting when you compare him to some of the larger dealers, for example, that we spoke to last week, that have some of the largest Ford stores in the US market, who are basically talking about ways to just sell more vehicles. So it was kind of interesting to sort of hear that dichotomy from totally different places in the
Absolutely.
industry.
So in just addressing that, when you look at things, and I've been on all the Clubhouse calls and everything for the last 2-3 weeks, and everyone's talking about the drop ball and the drop ball of the lead, the drop ball of this, drop ball, and every single time. The only way you can drop a ball is by passing it off to someone else. And when you do that, you're opening up yourself for opportunities of failure. When you can consolidate it, you are leading yourself down the path of accountability, and you can staple it right to that one person, and you can itemize every step of the process with that one person and make that experience that much better.
Well, but it wasn't about that. That was what was interesting. Is his point of view was more and more remote sales. He's selling to more and more states, and he was really looking at, you know, not only experience but also you know, how he could do it with less people. So it wasn't necessarily about a one-to-one model. It was about, if I have 8 salespeople or 25 salespeople or 40 salespeople, how can I have the same result and maybe even a better customer experience with less touches or less people involved? So that was really interesting, I thought, just as we've heard some discussion with Amazon and others recently. But go ahead, Jeff.
Well, that's a very good point, and we'll open it up for discussion sort of at the end when we make a little bit note of each person's predictions. April, what do you predict, other than the Horn Auto Group, is going to become the largest volume operator in the U.S., and April will get a jet?
Okay, so my prediction kind of is the same as what it has started to happen through the last quarter of this year. Next year is going to be all about affordability, period. Whether we're talking about variable or we're talking about fixed ops, affordability is going to be key. And whether that means that we look at leasing, I think that is going to come back into play pretty significantly as manufacturers start to incentivize leases. They start to bring rebates back into the equation. Used cars are going to be king again because we're starting to see those numbers, you know, kind of settle out. So used cars are going to be a huge thing. And then I think even things like financing and fixed ops. The opportunity is going to be, are you ready to help your customers be able to transact? If we're not ready to do that, we're going to fall on our face. So I think we have to just be where our customer is, and where our customer is really about, how do I get a lower payment, better fuel economy, better way to get from A to B. And that's really what I think is going to be the biggest key in the next year.
I think you've one of the affordability topic is probably going to be the big one, in my opinion, because we're starting to see this. We're starting to see people trying to get out of their pandemic vehicles, and you know, we are so upside down. It's absolutely crazy, and the banks are not buying very well anymore. And you know, up here in Canada, we've had 2 major banks get out of auto financing, like phenomenal.
Well, and keep in mind, like, the majority of customers are not that upside down. The only ones that are upside down are the ones that bought a car in the last couple of years. Right. But how many customers did not buy a car because they weren't unable to? Because either A, they didn't want to spend the crazy money, or B, they just flat weren't able to actually purchase a vehicle. So there is a plethora of customers out there for us to sell cars to, and a lot of pent-up demand. But the key is going to be helping them budget, helping them understand the big picture, looking at insurance and gas and all the variable things that come into what it takes to own a vehicle. And I think that that's really, really gonna be key. The rest of it, I think, is just kind of fluffy duffy crap.
That's terrific.
That could be another article there, April.
Fluffy Duffy crap.
Fluffy Duffy crap.
That's as PC as I could get. So
Oh, wow.
April, I want to forewarn you, December 9th, 2024, we're having our review of 2023. And in there, I've already made the notes that April said fluffy duffy crap. So
Fluffy Duffy crap.
April, nice job, Wendy.
You can see it on my paper too, right there.
There we go. Actually, that might show up on LinkedIn any moment now. And it'll be flagged. Watch. Next,
tagging that baby.
we'll ask Larry now. Larry, be nice. What's your predictions?
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Get unmuted. First of all, since I've become synonymous with your disclaimer, I want to reference the last honest president we will ever have, Harry Truman, because he didn't want the job. They used to say, "Give him hell," Harry responded. "I just tell the truth and they feel like they're in hell." So now that we've got that out of the way, I'm very comfortable. I agree completely with April, and I think there's a secondary reason, April. Not only the affordability, since leases are generally, quite a bit cheaper than a retail and a shorter term, but I think the key is the shorter term, because everybody's aware that cars we're keeping cars longer and longer, and while that's very healthy for the fixed op side, it's not very healthy for the new car sales side. So I think they're going to have to bring leasing back as a functionality, again, of being, reasonable as far as pricing. More importantly, breaking the cycle of how long it is for people to get cars.
Hey Larry, I was on a call the other day, I think it was last Monday, and they were talking about leasing in the United States. The average penetration, I was told, was 15 to 18% variable based on state. In Canada, it's over 70% on leasing.
And you said they're dropping it, Jeff, right?
No. Leasing is a mandate in Canada. Basically, there's two banks, and banks can't lease; they can only finance. And so banks are bailing out because leasing is coming over again and being massive because people can't afford things. And if you look at a payment versus a lease, you're protected on a lease, and second you are your affordability is 2/3 of that of a finance.
But the other difference is term too. Term is the other difference.
The only objection to leasing that I ever thought that made any sense was that there's little stricter rules as far as credit, because since we're in both our countries, I believe we're obsessed with vehicles. Who wouldn't want to get a new one sooner rather than later? The argument, I want to own something. You're owning a depreciating asset that at one point, if you keep it long enough, is worth nothing unless you keep it for 30 years and it becomes a classic.
Well, can we also talk about just the volatility of the market as a whole, and that uncertainty causes people to say, hey, I don't want to, I want to date the situation. I don't maybe want to marry it because who knows what, mandates might come 4 or 5 years down the road. And if I'm subjected to being in a car that now, I can't get parts for, or whatever crazy comes down our way, I think we have to consider that might be another reason that leasing starts to take off, is people know they've got a much shorter commitment to it.
Well, the other difference in the countries is the term of leasing. So the most common lease term in the Canadian market tends to be 48 months. In the US, it tends to be 36. So that's a discussion I think would be pertinent to have in the US, which is basically, I know you've always leased or historically leased for 36, but let me show you how affordable 48 months could be. The other thing that I think when I worked for Nissan was really interesting in certain markets was prepaid leasing, which is another way to really overcome that, I want to own it or whatever kind of philosophy is. Well, what if you just paid it all up front? You could still have that benefit of leasing if that's available. But I would also argue, though, that the higher end of the car, the more leasing penetration there tends to be. So I would say that historically the case with the domestic side, but on the high end luxury side, it's definitely very, very high number. So it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how that shifts. But I think a longer term is definitely a big plus. But go ahead, Jeff.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome, Tim, nice to see you.
Hey, it's good to see you guys. Happy December, happy holidays, all of the above.
Yeah.
I love the view of the Texas Longhorn and the skyline of Austin, or whatever it is back there.
Well, you bet. It's about 5 p.m. here in Austin, as you can tell by the sun. Those are all my that's my bowling repertoire on the wall.
Next to your footballs and.
Hey, Tim, I'm working on that equation you asked me to help you with. I just have to do that right after I figure out how to use my garage door.
All right, I'll call on you in just a second, Tim. I do want you to remember the term fluffy Duffy, please.
Fluffy Duffy crap.
Got it.
Fluffy Duffy crap.
What's your thoughts, Wendy? What's your prediction? Mute.
Muted.
Muted. So I want to circle back to just a piece that everybody kind of said. So like Peter and Doug, I'm sorry you're not feeling well. I hope you feel better. And I'm sorry we can't hear your words of wisdom today, but we look forward to next time when you're better. And Peter, with your one dealership, one person representing, and then Ian saying about how dealers want to downsize, I think that's important. But before I make my prediction, I also want to say, April, fluffy Duffy crap. And then, just kidding. And you'll get that, Tim, when you play the replay. But a lot of things April mentioned, and what my prediction is going to be a culmination of what you're all talking about. Larry, with the affordability and the term, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, I was listening to a conversation this morning between 3 different dealers on all things car biz, and they made some really valid points about the opportunities. One guy said that on Saturday they sold all new cars. They didn't have one used car deal. And it's in a predominantly subprime market, which was really surprising to me.
Wow.
That no used cars. Yes, in New Jersey. Then I heard A-Flow say that he happened into a conversation with a customer that they had broomed, and they let him walk, and he had 2 potential trades. Long story short, they worked that guy out, and that was on a new car. And then he also had an unhappy service customer that couldn't get parts for his 22 model, and he talked him Cadillac, and he talked him into leasing a brand new one, a 2024. So, and then I also want to ask about affordability with leases. 4 or 5 years ago, I had heard that Nissan started digging deeper, buying deeper. So I wonder if some of the OEMs are considering lowering the threshold for lease qualification or approval to meet with the demands. That said, my prediction, and you guys should know this because I stick to my same old tune. What's it going to be, April? The human side. So I think what's going to be an important factor, and if you didn't see April's webinar with Ileana Raggio from Dealer E-Process, look it up on YouTube. It was masterful, and I made our entire service and sales BDC watch it, by the way, to embrace your goal for 2024, and it's a valid one. We need to change the way we're speaking to our customers. We need to change the way we're listening to our customers. And these are my words and Sean Kelly's words. Is it active listening, or are we actually listening? And if we listen, and to April's point, if someone's in for service, we try to hit them up for new tires or whatever, and they say no, and then we don't ask them again when we confirm the appointment. And then they're there and they're like, okay, give me the tires, I'm here, blah, blah, blah. As long as I got to give my car up, well, we don't have them in stock. So now we have to create another visit because we have to gear up. So we need to teach our BDC teams, our schedulers, whatever, even AI, to find out. It's going to be great when we have conversational AI and we can program that stuff so that it can read the history of the vehicle when we engage with the customer who's either scheduling or we're doing an outreach, which is also hugely important in 2024, is the outreach and the data mining, connecting the AI piece that doesn't give them 100% satisfaction. Are we asking the right questions? Are we being proactive? Are we looking at the life cycle opportunities with this person for retention? Because to Ileana's words, yes, April, I was paying attention. To Ileana's words, it costs a lot more money to get a new customer than it does to retain our current customers. So let's start treating them better, and let's start thinking and being proactive about the opportunities and the maintenance schedules and what we should be providing to them. Because you know what? If we don't close them, someone else is gonna. And then we're looking at conquest again, and that's what
Absolutely. Acquisition cost is about 3 times more than retention cost. So
It's easier, Peter.
you know what?
Spend money and put ads out and put bots out and everything else. It's easier than actually actually listening to your customer. That's unacceptable. We can't do anything proper and proactive. No.
Hey, Jeff.
go
ahead, Pete.
I'd almost go into a dealer group just for the sake of doing it, just for doing it for free, to teach the opportunity that they're throwing down the drain every single day without looking at the data. Ben Hadley, when Larry was in Sotocon and doing his our lethal sales, Ben Hadley came on and said, there's 3 drives that sell cars: the test drive, the service drive, and the hard drive. Those are the 3. And I've always said the hard drive. I never said the test drive. And coming from Variable, I was shocked that I didn't use that before. But the service drive and the hard drive are absolutely imperative to maintain our momentum going into 2024, and we're not utilizing it. And guys like Tim, and I'm sure Tim's going to bring it up, is what we can do to make sure that it's moving forward and how it's going to happen.
Well, there's another.
I gotta respond to Wendy. 2 things. One, that podcast was out of sight. Really, really good. And 2, I believe that if we had this show in 1930, we'd be having the same conversation, because it always breaks down to a lack of communication. But what's scary now is how easy it is to disseminate information, and we seem to be communicating even less. So it seems like the predictions seem to be circular.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. We're going to be announcing, VidCall's going to be announcing a new partnership as we roll into the new year. And the company has a really interesting real-time translation product. And the thing that's been interesting in the sports arena and elsewhere is working with automotive dealers, and they're just starting that process, is that the dealers don't really understand the languages in their neighborhood, even if it's in a predominantly English-speaking place in North America. It's very interesting. So I'm looking forward to sharing more of that as we roll into 2024. But go ahead, Jeff.
Hi. So Tim, you missed the call to action here, which was your prediction. One single prediction about 5 minutes or so after everybody's done. We're going to go free for all. But for 2024, what do you think is your biggest prediction for the industry?
Well, I mean, I'll give you a softball here in a second, and I guess I'm really salivating for the free for all. But you know, what everybody's been talking about, what Wendy talked about, you know, what Ian was just saying a second ago about, you know, being able to understand the language, being able to have empathy with your customer, period, right? This is what Larry talks about, looking people in the eyes. I think next year, because of this EV thing, right, which is a whole lot of different things, dealer by dealer, area by area, I think the EV thing and the general economic volatility that's out there right now with the disparity in inflation and everything else, I think lots of dealers are going to finally understand to respect the opportunity to have a lifetime view, and to have it be defined by the relationship that you host and you keep with your customers. You're not here to sell cars. You're here to help people. And with that, the big quotable thing you can put in the show notes is that 3% of the dealers in North America will realize that 51% of their sales in 2024 were electric vehicles. That's my big prediction.
Actually, I have to tell you, you said this EV thing. You hit me with a reminder. On the weekend, we had a bunch of people over. I was talking to a friend of mine who said his brother went out and bought a Kia Niro. And he said, he didn't get an electric, he got a gas, but he says it's like an EV. And it hit me with something. EVs are not just EVs. They're not just electric powertrains. Otherwise, you would just have a car with an electric powertrain with a little screen to control certain things of it. EVs, they decided, let's go crazy. Let's go great big screens. Let's go really funky designs, etc., etc. The EV thing, you just like somebody's starting to get it to say, let's make the regular cars attractive too. And instead of just the old ways. Oh, very good thing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's been a lot of posting specifically around data, but specifically the data seems to be North American or old world centric. So whether it be Europe and North America or those type of markets, what people don't seem to talk about enough, in my opinion, and we had the opportunity to interview the folks from Talbot Cars in Used Car Week. That's a Chinese Carvana, essentially. Tao Che Cars. Those are the guys. Essentially, 50% of the global market for EVs is China. So the big question is going to be on the BYD front. So it'll be very interesting to see how that impacts car sales globally, but more importantly, pricing globally. I think that's when it's really going to get interesting. When you start to see pricing being in line or close, I think that's really going to change the conversation. But anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, okay, so we've got an opinion from everybody. I want to throw out something here just for an open forum. What are we going to screw up in 2024?
That's easy. It's going to be leaning too hard on technology and not emphasizing human beings, because nobody likes when they get caught up in the electronic, matrix. April, I had a little small problem with the computer, and everybody knows I'm a wizard, right? It's like Elon Musk's smarter brother, and I think I should join the United Nations because I spoke to 11 different people from 11 different countries who were too busy studying tech to learn how to speak English. I was ready to throw the computer out the window. It's going to be when we use tech as human beings to enhance our performance, it's great. When it's just tech, I will quote Ian, who always says, the problem with this stuff is a lot of it doesn't work a lot of the time, and then where the hell are we? Whereas if you put the human stuff in it, even the dumbest of us can find a way to maneuver around and live our lives and make moves. I think everything else is unpredictable. Are these interest rates ever going to come down? Are we ever going to get any fiscal sanity? Are we ever going to, face the political challenges? But I think I'm seeing more and more people. Tim, you'll love this because I love your brain and your tech ability. I answer my phone. My assistant answers my phone. It rings in both. Every damn call, there's a pause because people call you expecting you not to answer the phone. And try to have a conversation or a tech thing where the spelling's correct or any math is involved. So I just think it's going to be the seesaw leaning up for the tech and down for the human. And I still think that the human is the path. I am probably the least technical person on every damn show that I'm on. And yet somehow people say, I like that guy, or he's funny, or, I think there's a little bit of empathy. So that's kind of what I see. I mean, a million other things can happen. But I think if we disbalance tech, if 1984 no longer is a story about what could happen, but is actually happening, we're going to be in trouble.
Right. Yeah,
Hey, Tim, those horns behind you just started moving. I'd be careful.
Well, no bullshit here, Larry. I will tell you that. The net thing is we're going to see, to answer your question directly, Jeff, is I think we're going to see a lot of technology gone wrong. I mean, to Larry's point, people are going to look at over automation. They're going to look at using bots worse they're going to plug some of these bots into their DMS, to their CRM. They're going to go buy a CDP and they're going to not implement it right. They're not going to do, first of all, they're going to miss the point that it's about 100% of your data, not just your customer data. All of your data needs to go in your CDP. You got to do that in 2024, or you're going to be absolutely left behind. That doesn't mean you need to automate everything. It just means you got to be better at data governance. A lot of people are going to get that wrong. We're going to see some costly situations with data breaches. We're going to see some costly situations with FTC safeguard violations and state data privacy violations. It's going to be fascinating on all the table stakes, on top of all the table stakes that Larry was just talking about, with interest rates and unemployment rates and the general pricing of vehicles and whether or not they do, to what Wendy was saying earlier. And I think I missed the podcast, but what April might have been speaking about is, subprime or used inventory, and where does that play in the marketplace to build more customer traffic? All of that, if you can't get that right, which nobody seems to be getting right, just wait till all the rest of this happens on the technology side.
Hey, Tim, how about ransomware? Because when you're exposing this much technical information to this many things, think about the nightmare of when they come. It never happened to me, thank God, where they come in and fine you because there's a driver's license sitting on the table. Every damn dealership I go to, I grab the license if I see it, run it over, and grab the salesman and say, "Hey, I'm on your side. Stick it in your desk."
Yeah, so that's just it, right? The whole reason the FTC, it is not a frivolous thing that they're doing here, but dealers are notorious for writing Social Security numbers down on 18 pieces of paper and it's floating all over the place, right? That's data. That's I'm not talking about marketing automation, DMS or CRM or social analytics. That's data too, but wrap your head around it. You've got information everywhere, and it's a liability now.
Tim, fungible liability, fungible data. You would think that as a manager, I did it every day, would say when I own my store, guys, put the paper in your desk, get it into the finance manager. I love your efforts, but you're going to get us fined. Yeah, and again, I love people that look after things. You're so detail-oriented. Peter can't say hello without a 12-page dossier. April's keeping the whole room tight. What happens if that's more machines than humans?
Right.
So let me just jump in on that for a second. This is something that I'm quite passionate about right now. It's the bone that I've chosen to chew on, and it's digital retailing. And so many dealers right now have absolutely no idea what digital retailing actually is. And I get my hands wrapped all the time because it sounds like I'm being condescending to dealers. Well, no, I'm not. And it's just that it's in ignorance to what the terminology is, and it's anything that touches digitally for your customer interaction with you. That could be anything. Could be in the dealership. It could be outside the dealership. It could be anywhere. Anything that touches digitally, and that's where the FTC guidelines are going to come in, and all these challenges and the fines and everything else. And people don't realize that because dealers mistakenly and ignorantly confuse digital retailing with lead generation. And one of the unique things that I just saw 2 days ago, Brian Pash put out an article on what Toyota is mandating for its dealers on its websites. And they're taking away lead generation from their websites. And they're taking away chatbots from their websites. And they're taking away all the things that I've been saying that is harming the digital journey for the dealerships in the customers. And that's in that omni-channel experience that has to be put there. And it's amazing. And if anyone hasn't read the article, look up Brian Pash. It's on his LinkedIn, and it's awesome.
I have a question about data. Tim's ears just perked right up. You can see it. Bing. Does anybody have data on what percentage of people hit the X button on the chat bot that pops up?
81% will bounce off a website when a chat button pops up. 81%.
Well, I had the opportunity to talk to one of the largest Ford dealers in the U.S. last week, and I asked him about leads from chat specifically, and he said they get somewhere around 100 a month. So, and they have, I think the number was about 50,000 unique web visitors a month to their main website. So it's a pretty low number.
Now you're gonna get me all fired up, and we're gonna
there you go.
Everything else, but guys, it's about everything else that we talk about. It's not necessarily that these things are bad or wrong. It's how they're being used, where they're being placed, and what their purpose is. So I do use chat, and I actually get a lot of engagement on my chat, but I also make sure that it's placed properly. It's not bouncing and blocking everything on mobile, and it's there to help the customer along the way to find what they're looking for. I utilize it more to be the baton tossing between, really for digital retailing online. They hold the hand of my digital retailing process online by having that chat process. So chat isn't just a chat bot anymore. Chat actually is integrated through a lot of these digital tools. So we just need to be careful when we say certain things that we're being real clear on what we're talking about, where it is, and placement, because there is still some stuff. And I had one of my guys yesterday, actually not yesterday, a couple days ago, reach out to me and wanted to find out why he wasn't getting form fills as much as he used to. And he said, they're not asking questions. I'm used to getting these form fills that answer questions. I said, well, because we've kind of evolved past this blanket conversation. Now you're getting a whole conversation. It's usually coming in the form of a transcript, right? Mm-hmm. So we're getting more than just one simple question like, what's your best price? Or do you have this color? But rather getting a lot more interactive conversation going. So I do think there's good place in some of these tools. And I read that article, I agree with you, Peter, amazing, great article. And that's kind of what it's saying. If you read through that, it's saying, look, we just need to level up to the next evolution of digital communication on our websites and how we're doing it. Not necessarily that these things are wrong or bad, but how we're using them needs to be.
Exactly.
And Peter, what I'm seeing on that too, to your point, to both of your points, you say no chat, April says yes chat. I see kind of a happy medium too, where I'm seeing more things like Frickin' Tech, where they will follow the customer's click path. They have whatever the pixels, whatever the verbiage is. I'm not a techie person, but what I do know is it's the same premise. They're going to tell you what they were doing and what they viewed on your website, same as a chat. But here's the cautionary statement, and forgive me for breaking in, but it was a perfect segue. Make sure who's ever on the receiving end has the login information to get to that transcript if it's not placed in the customer note in the lead, because for years our agents click on the link and there's nothing, so we have no idea. And also, I think for me, what we're going to screw up is this: not only data governance but process governance, and who is watching, because I've been in 3 dealerships this last 4 months that called me in because they either didn't trust the data they were seeing on the performance of their BDC, and one of them was manipulating the CRM, and I'm just now going down that rabbit hole.
No, manipulating the CRM, no.
But the other thing is their BDMs they're not holding them accountable, or they're fudging data of their agents to make themselves look good. So you got to make sure you're checking who's minding the store. That's my
absolutely. And I'm not against chat, because I think chat has its purpose, but it should be off to the side, like Toyota's asking, and that the customer engages the chat rather than forcing the customer on the chat. And that also goes along what you were just saying, that what Tim and I have been discussing for a year is, how do we get the data data, whatever side of the border we're on, how do we get that to the right people? Because that's the intelligence that gives us the opportunity to convert more customers to lifetime value, because we want to know, and Horn has multiple rooftops, and we want to know that that customer has been at this dealership, and this dealership, has bought 3 cars from each individual dealership, and we want to know how their focus is and what their focus is, and it's in that notes. So if they come into the 4th Horn dealership, we want to know that how we looked after them and give them the best experience. And that is, as Doug and I have said many times, we're going from customer experience to dealership experience to a global experience. And that's only capable when we have the intelligence from the data.
Well, but the other side of the intelligence is data. Everyone knows I'm a data geek, so I love my data. But it also is the humans.
Yep.
So my stores that actually are performing the best with chat are the ones where my salespeople are the ones being the other side of the chat. Live chat with my humans in the store are ways to, like, their closing rate on that is so much greater, so much higher. And I really think that 2024, my big prediction is that 2024 is going to be the great equalizer. It's going to be the year where the customer starts making decisions again.
Right.
So the customer has not been the one to make the decisions for years now. It's been the government. It's been the lack of inventory. It's been happenstance or whatever just, has happened. But I think 2024, because we will have inventory, we will have to help our customers and get back to customer service, the customer will start to decide based on how they buy, what they choose to buy, what they want to spend money on, what they don't spend money on. They will start to be the decision makers again. And when that happens, everything that we've done over the last 2 years, I predict a lot of it is going to fall into the fluffy Duffy crack section, and it's going to go by.
I would agree
100%.
When you look at a bot, whether it be AI enhanced or not, and a person handling the chat. I know there's some chat companies out there that have people, but obviously if you're actually able to answer those questions, it adds a lot of value, and people know the difference. So it's pretty obvious, no matter whether it's automotive or other website, that actually having a person able to answer those questions, you're more likely to engage with that person, but more importantly, provide that higher level of experience.
Well, that's exactly, I mean, what, Doug's over in the chat, because he can't join us, saying we all want IntelliChat right after Wendy's talking about what the appointment setters have access to and don't have access to have empathy. This is all about the information. Right after April talks about the offline conversations, the physical conversations, something Larry's very passionate about, looking people in the eye, giving them a firm handshake, and having a conversation about life before you have a conversation about cars. Those are all the places where the human can get things right. There's a data opportunity to enable the human to get it better, right? So if they can get it better, then we'll be ready for this, to what April just said, that the customer is going to start making decisions in 2024. Guys, we are 5 or 6 days into Google Gemini being revealed, and it is no longer LLM, large language model. It is now MLM. That happened in 48 hours last week. There is no such thing anymore as a large language model that is going to do things for you, like write blog posts and social posts. There is now multimodal language models that customers are going to have on their phones, and they'll be able to walk the lot, point their phone at a car, and have it tell them everything they want to know about that car, and it's not going to come from the OEM. It may, from a branded search standpoint, be informed by the OEM, but it's coming from Google. So, and it won't be just Google. So I'm just saying, there's a whole lot of truth that I'm probably adding some why behind what April just said about the customer making more decisions. They're just, if you thought they knew a lot before, If you thought they knew more than you before, they're going to know more in real time about what's happening in the marketplace than you ever did. I mean, that's where this is going.
And that should be a challenge then to salespeople to not only be friendly and ask questions and listen, but to be more knowledgeable. You know, when you have these kind of things thrown in front of you, successful people like everyone in this program look at them as challenges, and people that limit themselves look at them as obstacles. How can anything that forces you to be smarter or think more be a negative?
Right.
Well, you know what, though, it's very interesting, Larry, you say that. We I don't know how long, you know, Peter, what would you say, or Larry, no, you said 1930 something or other. We gotta, this is the talk, selling horses, because not too many people sold a lot of cars then. We gotta listen to what the customer wants. You know, as Doug said, their wants and their needs, like, holy cow, why are we talking about this as such a great thing to predict in 2024? It should be all about that. I don't care if it's cars, if it's data, you know, there's Google, MLM, you know, MMA, whatever it is, you know, we're talking the same thing that should have existed 35, 40 years ago.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, that's the funniest thing about all this, right? If you really think about it, I used to say this about smartphones, but smartphones made us less accountable because all of a sudden we could run late for lunch and text somebody and say, I'm almost there. Used to be that we'd call each other and say, let's have lunch at this time, and we'd both be there at that time, right? So there's more of that, which if you go back and watch the replay of this, which I must do to get the fluffy Duffy down. But
Fluffy Duffy crap.
Yeah, fluffy Duffy crap.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, that's what's eroded is the human relationship side. I saw a stat the other day that said, on average, around the world, people read 3 less books every year right now. That tells you something. Why is AI all of a sudden scaling right now? Because we're not taking in information as humans. We're not doing it as much, right? And that's especially critical in business, and it's most critical in sales and service. Doesn't matter if you're selling hamburgers or you're selling cars. You have to be able to have empathy from the information that's shared with you, and you need to know how to go get more of it, get more of that information, and how to govern it.
Well, when you look at
share something with you. I've been commenting. It's very interesting. We're talking about treating the customer right. And I've been commenting up here in Vancouver, Uber. So Uber drivers up here, for some reason, feel it's okay to sit on their earphone, driving customers, talking in their native language to whomever they're talking to, while they have the customer in the back, and they expect a 5-star rating. Anywhere else you go, the driver sits there quietly. If the phone rings, they hit ignore. If they pull up, they will, and you've got bags, they run out and they put stuff in the back of the trunk. I especially found that tremendous down in Scottsdale when we were there for used car week. But up here, it's like, oh my God, they're going to scratch my car. It's the only reason they get out and help them with their bags. Just a little tidbit. Just a tidbit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone remembers, but whatever, I'm sure they do. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand guy, died, I think, last week. And there was a lot of quotes that circulating around him. I mean, probably less than the celebrities' dating lives. But anyway, a lot of the quotes were really about lifetime learning. And I think that's a huge plus that I don't think we're paying enough attention to. I mean, I'm not saying AI isn't a possible solution, but there's a lot of dumb AI, but more importantly, dumb people using AI who thinks it can replace them and not really looking at what it's saying. I mean, I see this even in audio tracks for trailer reels for YouTube videos where it's clearly not a person. Like it's obvious that they're putting this out and not the best
And
way.
you're never going to get a machine to say, I know exactly how you feel. That happened to me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's be careful with technology, but more importantly, you can leverage it if you know what you're doing, but make sure you take the time to understand it.
I got to tell you, as I started out the show with, the best thing about AI, that's the biggest boom, is going to be to the young people dating scene. because the AI is gonna say, it's not you, it's me.
So is it text for them? Is that what you're saying? Text breakups?
People, thank you so much. We're coming up on the hour, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything for this year. Next week is our final show of the year, the advisory panel. We're not gonna go for a new look. We're gonna go for a little bit of a facelift in 2024, and some of the things that said we're going to do one-on-one interviews, record them. Some of the people we'd love to have had on during the year just couldn't come at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on a Monday. And we're going to get some great ones, as I said, Ronald Rump and Picky Haley and Bestine Frudeau.
All right.
That's the fluffy Duffy prop that April was talking about. So
Well, hey, I don't know if you know this, but Justin Trudeau's father coined the phrase. He was at something. This is in like 1960 or something, and a reporter said he told him to use the classic term "f off." And when called on it later, he said, "No, I said fuddle double."
Yeah.
Canada, it became huge.
Well, if you want some humor in your life, I photoshopped Trump's hairdo on Trudeau. It's pretty funny. Anyway, have yourself a great day. Bye for now.
Merry Christmas.
All the best. Merry Christmas to everyone. Take care.
Oh la la. What? Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.